Man, I've been like, even when I'm in like recording for music or something, I've really had to like do some crazy setups sometimes, you know, son. So I've done closets, I've done, you know, literally sitting on top of my suitcase trying to stock it up. So this isn't quite the weirdest, but I love it though. It's definitely like, I love how you have your whole setup.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
I assume the days of bedroom recording are behind you now, right?
I mean, sometimes I actually just do it for fun. Like, it's nice to just go back in where it all started, you know? Like being in big fancy studios are nice, but also it's nice just writing when you first wake up in the morning. And now I have a studio in like my house and stuff like that, like a proper one. But I just kind of like to write outside of the studio sometimes.
When you're off tour, do you have a pretty strict schedule when it comes to, you know, actually getting some work done, getting some writing done?
Yes, when I'm off tour, I usually have less time to myself, you know, even though I'm the one on the stage when I'm on tour, and you know, I'm the artist on tour, versus when I'm off tour, it's me balancing finishing my own albums, like creative directing other artists, helping them put their teams together, and also writing their albums as well. On top of the fact that, like, you know, I kind of have this management conglomerate that's just kind of for me, you know. So it's a lot of it's a juggling act, you know. But it's kind of what makes my life always exciting and never boring.
Why do you give yourself so much work? I mean, you could work a quarter of the time and still be successful.
Well, I think it's just like, I've worked since I was 9 years old, and I think that I like to go wherever my imagination wants to take me, you know? So if I wanted to just say, I'm going to just write songs for me, like, that would be just too easy. It's just too easy to continuously just be like, okay.
There's a lot of people out there who are hearing this and are like, oh God, you just said songwriting is easy.
It's too, like, once you get to a certain point of like really being a student of your craft, I think it's not songwriting itself that's easy. It's staying in your comfort zone that's easy, I think is what I mean. Like, songwriting is my comfort zone. And so when it comes to making sure that I'm doing things outside of that so I can always enjoy coming back to songwriting and always have something to write about, I think that that's the harder thing, is to get out of that, you know, and always be reminded to come back to it.
Are there ways to get out of your comfort zone while writing?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think that for me personally, my writing and my experiences come from life. So I have to get out of my comfort zone in real life, you know, in order for that to really, really show through my writing, whether it's writing for me or whether it's writing for other people. I just kind of have to be exploring those nooks and crannies of like my desires, my imagination, my wants, what I think my needs are, like all of these different things.
What is exploring the nooks and crannies of your wants? How does that play itself out?
Well, it's like the moment that I'm like, oh, I passed like a baking area, like when I was riding through the valley, and I was like, you know what, I want to do it. I love to bake. I love to cook. You know, baking is something that's new to me. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I want to go learn how to bake a cake. Me and my friends went that day, and we're like, let's go. Like, literally, it's just going to, if it pops into my head, I'm probably going to do it. You know, there's a reason why it popped into my head. I'm not the type of person to be like, well, maybe another time. I'm like, let's do it right now. You know, and I think that having that kind of, that sense of wonder, that little child in you that is curious about everything. I'm curious about everything to the point where, like, my mom will have to tell me, like, oh, no. The moment that I'm curious about something, it's like, oh, don't go into the rabbit hole, Tayla. Don't go, because I'm like, I'll end up literally like, I wanted to know where my Yorkie came from. I found out that they came from this specific time period and how they ended up turning.
How they were actually bred in the first place?
Yes. Yeah. Like, I go, like, down rabbit holes because I'm so curious, you know?
I mean, you must have been a kid with a lot of hobbies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been working since I was 9, so I think that's why at this point in my life, I did have to get to the point where I was like, okay, what things do you enjoy outside of songwriting, outside of singing, outside of dancing, outside of acting? What do you enjoy? Who are you? Not what do you do? You know, and that was something that I had to find out later on in life, because when most kids are finding out who they are and they're, you know, playing on the playground and they're doing all these other things, I was working. I was really coming into what I did versus who I was. And now, you know, in my 20s, I'm like, you know what? let's just run with wherever your heart takes you. I love to travel, and inevitably I meet people. I meet strangers that tell me their version of love, that tell me their version of life, their experiences, all of those things. Which is where now we're adding to what music is. Now we're adding to my songwriting capabilities because I'm able to listen to other things.
Are you talking about fans, or are you just the
Both.
kind of people just spill their conscious
Both,
out to you?
yes. People.
What is it about you that makes people just want to tell you everything?
I think I'm so curious. Like for my birthday in September, I'll just be like, well, like strangers talk to me all the time, and I'm definitely the type of person that's like, hey, what's good? You know.
Yeah.
So if you ever see me out and about, I'm always the type to be like, hey, hi. And so I ended up, even in Hawaii, I became friends with so many different couples because like they were on their couples retreat. I just went by myself because I'm usually surrounded by people all day, every day. So I went to the furthest edge of the, island.
Isn't traveling alone great? I think it's underrated. Traveling, just being somewhere in a new place by yourself.
Oh, yes. Because again, going back to getting out of your comfort zone, it was somewhere I'd never been. I don't know anybody on this island. And now I just have to kind of make new friends or ask questions like, how do I get here? And you never know who you might meet. So I ended up, there's people that are like, they still text me from that vacation. I'm like, hey, what's good? So I think I always make a new friend when I'm traveling, and that kind of goes back into like just the music, because if I was stuck in the studio all day, like what are you experiencing that you're going to write about that's different than the song you wrote last week?
Something like baking a cake, did that inform the songwriting process for you?
I think it actually gets me out of my mind a little bit. Every single conversation I have is like, oh, that could be a song. There's this one. It's like you have to get away from it.
So it's like it's meditative in a way.
It's literally that. Cooking, doing anything but the music, because I take in so much. I write around like 200 songs a year. It's like I'm taking in so much information, so much music, so much like from a fan perspective, from a songwriter perspective, from an executive perspective, from a publisher's perspective. Like I'm taking in a lot of music. So the thing that allows me to have perspective and a clear perspective is to be able to step away from it and be able to see it from a bird's eye view, or come back to it and say, whew, I'm so happy to be back in the studio again, which is also what touring does for me. It takes me, I can't do that session because I'm on the road. I can always say, but I have to get this song out, and I make sure that I can record while I'm on the road if I want to, but it gives me a moment to miss the music.
Where did that work ethic go? 200 songs a year. I mean, what drives you to write that much?
Literally life. There's so much to say. There's so much to see.
Did you write a song today?
I literally did a little funny freestyle for my mom. My mom was quitting her job, and I was like, this is what you got to say. And I made her a little jingle. She's not going to really do it, but...
Can you give me a little bit of that jingle? I want to hear what that sounds like.
I literally was like, some things like, I quit today, don't need to get paid, so I quit today, hope I never see you again. Like, it was very, very silly. I came up with it on the fly, and while I was getting my hair and my makeup done.
It's a little Dolly Parton 9 to 5
yes,
in there, right?
It was very, like, country, like... She was just cracking up at me.
How much of it is just sort of workshopping? How much of it is just getting it out of your system?
Most of it is getting it out of my system because nobody's going to put out 200 songs in 1 year.
Like, you would literally go crazy if you weren't writing all these songs down and
singing them.
If I
couldn't get it out, I would go crazy, So that's why it's good for me personally to let it happen naturally, because it happens often naturally because of... I started these camps called Burnout, right? And it was because I noticed that most creatives burn out very easily because they're so focused on, let's write the song, and that's all that it is, versus fueling that creativity by experiencing life, meeting a stranger, saying goodbye to a longtime friend, whatever, getting your heart broken, breaking somebody else's heart, whatever it is, you have to have those experiences. And for me, I think that right now I'm just chasing life and saying, okay, who am I today? Who will I be tomorrow? And I'm writing out those moments because these songs are my diary. So I know that my perspective is going to be different probably a week from now, maybe months, maybe years and decades from now. So it's my job as a writer and as a creative to capture that moment while I still feel it there. When I first started to write, it was very interesting because things are very dramatic when you're a young, new writer. You're going through experiences for the first time, you know, versus I was 17, like, I want to write for Beyonce and Rihanna. Well, she's married. What do you know about that?
You've never been married to Jay-Z?
No. Exactly. Like, you know, there's all of these things that you haven't experienced as a young writer, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of your imagination and it's a lot of your vulnerability of saying, this is happening for the first time and it's so dramatic, you know, which you'll never get that back.
I talk to a lot of writers and they think there's a value in having distance from something. Just outside of songwriting, but just dealing with stuff in your life, you know, I'm sure that you have examples. We all have examples of things that, like, we didn't really have perspective on until it was in the past.
Yes.
But you have such a sense of urgency. Do you think that there's going to be, or has there been a point in your life when you've gone back and revisited things with that distance?
Of course, because I don't think that even when I'm writing those, you know, 200 songs a year, it's not writing them just to finish a song. It's writing them to get it out, right? And they're like Fight, for instance, with my song with Florida Georgia Line. This was a concept I tried to write out years ago, and it just wasn't right. But I know that I had to say that, and there was something in my soul that was like it's just not quite right, you know? And when it came back around, it's a completely new song with the same concept.
What was the difference between the two versions?
Different melody, different lyric. It's always said the lyric, I'm not saying you're right, I'm not saying I'm wrong, I'm just saying tonight I want to get along.
The
it always said
same.
that. But different, completely different order. I actually say, like, you know, like that.
So who was right and who was wrong were different, but the words were there.
Exactly, like,
That's
you
funny.
know, that lyric was in the pre-hook of a previous song, and it was just like something that I was trying to get together, and I never would finish them because it just wasn't right. So I think that when you approach the song of saying, I'm not just writing just to finish a song, I'm writing to get it out. And now when it comes to releasing that song, then that's a different perspective you have to take. But I think that most artists, they have they have time to really sit with it when you're creating a project. You know, like my song I Want You is now something that I've written 3 years ago, you know, and I was able to see that perspective. But by the time it even came out, it was already like a year old because it was a process of building an album. So in order for me to say I still like this song that much later is a lot for me personally, because I have ADHD and there's a lot of songs in the world.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I figured that might be the case.
Exactly.
So these all exist, what, on your phone, on your computer, in a notebook?
Yes, on my phone. Sometimes it's just on. I've thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of voice memos and notepads and things like that. Sometimes it's just a line, but I try to write like 4 lines so I can understand truly where my headspace is. And if I need to come back to it, I can go back in my brain and revisit. Like, this is why I felt this way.
How do you keep that organized? That's crazy.
I don't know. Funny enough, as ADHD I am, I'm very organized.
Yeah.
Like, my calendar, my everything, like, I know what I'm doing in August, you know?
If Rihanna was like, hey, I want to collaborate, could you be like, go back into the mind banks and kind of pull a song off the shelf that might be a good fit?
Well, usually I like to, like, when I go into a studio with an artist, period, I like to just start it from scratch. I don't like to be like, I'm going to pull up some things, some ideas. Now, if there's like, there's a specific song that I want to see, do you happen to have anything like that? Then I'll be like, okay, let's go back into the archives and see what we have.
But there might be like a word or a phrase that you can borrow.
Yes, and then I basically, in that case, then I literally, if there's like, you know what, this would be perfect for you, I can literally type that word in my notepad and it'll come up. And it'll be, whether it's from 2016 or from 6 months ago, like that. I think that's why I started to do it that way, which was kind of impossible to do on pen and paper.
So you put out a mixtape. Your first like record was a mixtape, and you know, since you're somebody who's so prolific, why does it feel necessary to sort of like go through kind of the more traditional means of, of record labels, of album productions? You know, it would be an interesting exercise to see you do a song a day, or, you know, do a song a month, release something straight to like SoundCloud or Spotify.
Well, I don't think they're necessary. So I think, like, let's start there. They're not necessary at all. Labels are great partners if you have the right one. I don't think anything is like a necessary for success, though. But I feel like
they used
for me,
to be, for sure, right?
They definitely used to be, and so I think for me, I happen to be lucky enough to my label. They respect me as a businesswoman. They respect me as an artist. They respect me as an executive on the music side. So it's one of those things of that's why I released my mixtape independently, to show them this is where the bar is. We have to go above this.
This is what I could do without you, basically. Yeah.
Exactly. And they know that. And it's awesome because it gave us a precedent to say, look, I'm coming in this game. My mixtape is streamed a few 100 million times. I have Khalid, I have Sid, I have all these different artists. What are you going to bring to the table? And I think that every artist should force their label to pull up, because if you're going to be signing any type of label, contract, whether it's a manager, whether it's a publisher, or somebody that's going to own you, or that's going to own a portion of your livelihood, like of all those things, you should set that precedent. You should show them this is what I can do on my own, because then it also allows them to say, well, this is what we can add to the picture. And I think that any artist needs that right partner. So whether it's a publisher, whether it's a label, whether it's a PRO, there's always somebody that, or an accumulation of people that makes sense for that particular artist. And for me in particular, there were a lot of things that I was like, okay, in this world, this is what I think would add to my artistry. Mm-hmm. And so they gave me my own label, and I signed myself. I was like, okay, let's do it.
And you just kind of set the scene. We're in this like crazy practice space with all these like Broadway singers and everything. You had your dancers on there, and I was thinking of I think it was a Jay-Z line. Where, what is it? Like, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. You know that one?
Exactly.
Where it's just like you got a whole production going on here.
Yes, definitely a whole production. It started off as Taylor Made Inc., which was just me at first, and then it stemmed off into Parx Publishing, which is now me and numerous other writers and producers.
These all just sort of came out of specific necessities?
Yeah, honestly, like literally the same way that writings came from being a necessity, and it ended up being something that was like, oh, I understand the value that I can add into doing this differently, because we have too many publishers who don't do music. We have too many label executives who don't do music. Great ears sometimes, but we have so many opportunities for creatives to be involved in this type of level of things that could actually benefit creatives. And when you have creatives that are willing to say, you know what, I want to learn my business. I want to, only if you're interested. I was going to school for entertainment law. Yeah. That's something that I am personally interested in. Yeah. I am personally interested in changing laws for songwriters and producers and, really being an activist in that way. And I've always cared about what is in my contract and how can we make it better. And so I don't think that every creative is like that, but I do think that we have to have more creatives that step up and say, if you are doing this behind the scenes, I had a lot of people taking credit for, a lot of my success, because most people don't believe that an artist can manage themselves or that, a songwriter can manage themselves. But I think that the idea of a quote unquote manager of what it is outdated versus saying this is a team member. I have a massive team of people that help me, but people usually just say like the manager. I think it's just the idea that's outdated, not the role.
For a lot of people, it's once they see the sausage being made on that side, once they see like, I mean, the music industry it's a yucky place, right? Mm-hmm. It's bad, and a lot of people have been just sort of like profoundly screwed, and the label system is antiquated. For a lot of people, once they see that side of things, it just completely ruins the romanticization of being in the music industry. But you saw it, and you still wanted to be out in front of things.
Yes, I've had my wins, I've had my losses, I've had my lesson learned. I'll call them instead of losses, actually, because it doesn't make me go away. It actually just fuels me even more. Yeah, it fuels me even more. There was a lot of people who told me, you can't be a singer and a songwriter and a producer and a this and a businesswoman. It's like, says who?
Who's telling you that?
Literally, many different people. So many different people throughout my entire career. And I'm like, okay, we saw Dolly Parton start to do it. Okay, we see Alicia Keys, who also owned a studio in Times Square. We see so many different people. And so, but it's still so hard for people to believe when there's another young creative coming up and doing it, because we've been so stigmatized, like to the idea that artists are dumb and that artists don't only care about being on stage and they only do that. Like, that's not true.
I think a lot of people just don't want to worry about it,
Yeah,
which I respect, right?
And that also is the other side of it.
Yeah.
If you don't want to worry about it, then save yourself the hassle, because trust me, only if you really truly want to do this will you not go crazy in the end of it all. You know, it's only that drives me to say, I still enjoy doing it. If I still enjoy doing it after seeing how much bullshit it is, you know, then I must truly love it.
Are you a micromanager just in all aspects of your life? Are you that person?
I try not to be, but the moment that somebody gets something wrong, I'm like, see, you're pulling me back into my Virgo ways. You're pulling me back into my Virgo ways. I try to honestly hire people who I really trust are great at what they do, you know, so that I don't have to micromanage, because I think that, first of all, it gives people an opportunity to show what they can do and to grow and for whatever they end up doing. They might work for me now. They might work for themselves a year from now, or 5 or 10 years from now. But it gives, for instance, the photographer that is talented enough for me not to direct. I want you to get your vision across. I don't want to micromanage your vision, because you're going to probably come up with something way cooler than me. Same thing with the director that, you know, you have doing your music videos. Same thing with, you know, the producers that you're going to collab with. Allow people to get their idea out.
Telling people how to do their job is a really easy way to piss people off.
Exactly. Now, sometimes you do have to tell people, okay, let's do it. This is the way that, you know, whatever
this
it is.
This is my product. It's my name on something.
Exactly.
It should be the way I want.
But I think that more people should hire people that they trust to be great at their job, you know?
Are you a perfectionist?
Oh, definitely.
Is it hard for you to get stuff out the door?
I don't think it's hard to get stuff out of the door, because I think I'm a perfectionist, but I've grown to realize that, I mean, nothing's going to be perfect. Yeah. And I don't want to ever be that artist that is taking 4 years to put out an album and is just scaring myself on accident. Like, it just makes you put more pressure on yourself. More pressure for, like, I think having too close of a relationship, like what we were saying, with this only hurts the music, and it hurts you, like, you feeding your fan base the things that you want to put it out. They want you to put it out. So where is the disconnect happening here? It's only fear. I think that if you create projects out of fear, like, the worst that can happen is you put out a new project. And, you know, maybe I have the luxury to say that, because either way, I'm good. I have songs on the charts either way, whether they're my songs or other people's songs. But I think that more people have that freedom than they think.
Once you were in it for a while, did you find the song writing for other people to be frustrating, of not being able to actually sort of go out and perform the songs yourself?
No, I don't think that there's any song that made my album that I could hear any other artist doing. Like, I think that it actually gave me a freedom to say, hey, it's a really fun challenge for me to hit a bullseye. And when I say hit the bullseye, it means, like, an artist will come to you and be like, I want an up-tempo, but it has to feel sad. But it also has to feel this. And then it also has to have the word this in it, because I'm going through that. And it's like, okay.
You like that when somebody gives you very specific parameters?
Sometimes it just depends. It just depends on what I feel is worth it. You know what I'm saying? There's always an artist that you're like, okay, I will jump through all of these rings of fire just to prove to you that I can do it. You know? And that's just a fun challenge to myself. Like, it's just, okay, how good are you as a songwriter? Because that is what a songwriter does. And you have to turn off that artistry brain, you know? How can you really, really get this person's point across? And most of the times, they don't even know what they want. They're just saying shit. You know what I'm saying? And it's fine. But, you know, then there's the other side of saying, like, okay, for me as an artist, it gives me the freedom to say, okay, what is it that you want? You know, like, I like the structure of giving somebody else what they want and kind of being like that thing. And then I also like the freedom of saying, now I really, really know, even more so, that I'm being true to myself and my music, because I'm going the complete opposite way than everybody else is doing, you know, in regards to, oh, it has to be this way and it has to be that way. I'm just kind of trying to live my life and have my music reflect that.
You did sort of set yourself parameters from the standpoint of it being, I don't know if concept record is the right way to describe it, but you know, to create a cohesive song cycle.
Yeah, you're completely right on that. You're definitely, like, right on the fact that I don't just, like, throw a project together by any means. I think that, you know, I get out the things that I think most artists would be too afraid to do.
Such as?
In regards to saying, look, we're going to stick to a concept. Yeah. And we're not going to go based off of whatever, you know, and I'm going to release this when I want to release this. And I'm going to, like, and not be afraid of what the reaction is. Obviously, I'm human. I want people to like it. But also, I understand that music is just all about the taste, and it's the right timing, and all of these extra things that, you know, kind of make you a little bit less afraid. You know, when you're thinking about everybody else's opinion, when you're creating something that's from your heart, it hurts a little more when they don't like it. Like Erykah Badu said, I'm an artist, I'm sensitive about my shit because it's for you. So then you have to remind yourself, well, who am I creating this for? Am I writing this to get it out, or am I writing this to make sure that it relates? Because there's two different types of artists in this world. There's artists and there's like pop stars, right? You have the Frank Oceans who are like, I'll release a project when I want to, and it's totally fine. And then you have the pop stars that are like every album cycle, they're like, I have to be relevant.
Yeah,
and
they're chasing something.
They're chasing something versus just being. You know, and I don't want to ever chase anything. I think is the point. Like, I work with a lot of both of those types of artists, both. So I've been exposed to understanding, you know, the critically acclaimed artists get afraid that they'll be too cool and to be too pop. And the ones that are too pop are afraid that they'll never be critically acclaimed. So because I'm exposed to that, I understand that there's a middle ground to be found, and then there is no win. There's no this is better than the other. You just have to kind of do your thing, and whatever the people take it into, that's what they'll turn it into. There's nothing that you can do that's going to sway that, you know?
When you started writing, as you said, in cases a lot of like legit pop stars with a capital P, and you're dealing with a record label, do you feel that because of those connections that they were attempting to push you in a certain direction?
Oh, of course. I mean, when I first signed, my label was more so like, okay, she's an R&B act and she's this and that, which I was like, I don't know what part of my project you felt like was just of my mixtape that you felt like was just R&B.
What does R&B mean in 2020?
It's literally...
Is it like saying urban? Is that what it is?
Two freaking letters.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it means to me.
But I mean, is it like saying urban on a chart?
Yes,
is it just like saying, is it like this is music by a black person?
This is music by black people. You know, and if you understand like the history and what the names of those charts used to actually be, then you understand it a little bit more. We've just kind of been like used to saying this is urban music, and now my label laughs at me because I'm like, oh, let me put a little urban song on it for you, like to help you understand it a little bit more sometimes. And they're like, oh, here she goes, because it was a very big thing that we had, and I'm like, stop trying to make black artists one thing, you know? And like my project specifically has pop moments, it has urban moments, it has it has a country moment with Tomboys Have Feelings Too, which made sense when I put out the song with Florida Georgia Line. And none of my fans are like, but I just don't get the genre. They don't give a shit. Yeah. You know, like no fan is being like, I just don't get the genre. I feel like it's just an easy way for promoters and for playlisters and all that stuff to sift through without actually listening when they're getting these things that are based off of like, okay, well, how do we categorize it? Listen to it and go with your emotions, not based off of what somebody is telling you, or not based off of this big bucket that you're just trying to categorize in your head. You know, that's the olden days.
One of the nice things about technology, and one of the nice things about sort of like fragmentation and streaming services versus, you know, record stores, things like that, is like, I don't think people below a certain age care.
No, they don't. And I think that it's really just a matter of people, like publishers, labels, like all of these people catching up, you know, because we have a lot of the same people that were in that building before people did care. You know what I'm saying? It's literally the same people that we've been, you know, shopping records to for the past 20, 30, 40 years, you know, and it's very hard to change the mentality of something that's existed for a long time and worked. I can't blame, you know, them for saying, well, this has been working for the past 60, 70 years or whatever. I'm sorry, I'm making them sound like old as people.
You know, I think it's mostly a good thing. You know, the one thing that that sort of concerned me about like Spotify versus like, you know, back in my day, you know, you'd go into the record store and like, you know, like flipping through albums and, you know, doing research and stuff is I do worry. I wonder if people are losing context. You know, I wonder if people are sort of losing history. I wonder if, you know, if like having a little like a banjo on a song or a little like country twang, you know, are people going to go back and dig it up, and are they going to go like listen to like, you know, Hank Williams, you know what I mean? Like in the way that I think traditionally people have been like, oh, I like this thing, I'm going to explore it as much as possible. I wonder how much people are actually continuing to explore it, and how much of it is just sort of something that just, you know, spins by on a mixtape.
I agree with you, like, to a certain extent, because it's like there's so many records coming out that you could easily lose sight. So,
and it's so easy if you're not like going to a store and buying a record of just hitting forward on the Spotify.
Or just shuffle, and just basically listening to whatever is forced in your face.
Yeah.
Whatever is the highest on the playlist, whatever is the highest on the, like, and everybody likes to think that their ideas are so original, and they're just so unique, and they're the only ones who know about this thing. But at the end of the day, we're all heavily influenced by ads. We're all heavily influenced by streaming platforms and all of these other things. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily a good thing. It just depends on kind of what you're looking for. Like, there's no possible way to not find what you're searching for. So if you're the type of person that's curious enough to say, you know what, I want to go to these other not so popular playlists, or I want to go into, you know, and find out what else is on, because anybody can upload music to Spotify. So then there's a million different ways to explore it if you're like not too lazy.
Do you get a sense of where people are finding out about you?
Honestly, it's from so many different places. Some people find out about me through the movie Hairspray. Some people find out about me through, you know, some of the artists that I write for. Some people know me through being AJ on The Walking Dead, or Sims, like, and so I think that also because I've done, again, so many different things, and I'm just doing it because it's fun to me. It's really fun for me. It's even more fun for me when people tell me, oh, I know you because I saw you open up for Lizzo, and the next day I downloaded your entire album. Or, oh my God, you're AJ. And I'm like, well, my name's Tayla, but, you know, and they're like, but then I found out that AJ sang, and then I loved him. You know, I think that that's also makes me inspired to continuously do those things that I have fun doing, you know, instead of shying away from them because people just feel like you can't do it all. And I'm not doing it all. I'm just doing the things that are fun for me. So
the acting it feels more like a fun thing at this point?
Yeah, like I think that all of it feels like a fun thing at this point. I'm really like happy. It all feels like a fun thing. Obviously, but
do you feel more defined by one particular aspect? I mean, it seems like being music. Yeah.
Definitely music is my career, is my job, it's my thing, you know? And I think that every single time I've had to kind of make an evolution within music. So first being the songwriter, first being like, you know, having to prove myself as a songwriter, then having to prove myself as something else, and then having to prove myself now as an artist. I think that it's still new every single time. So right now, the artistry, it gives me something that's like, okay, I have something to prove again, you know, which is exciting, you know? Do you worry about spreading yourself too thin? Do you worry about burnout? Well, I think that because I always keep that in front of my brain, like, make sure that you're not spreading yourself thin. Like, it's the number one thing that pops up. How do you avoid that? I mean, you're doing 50 things at once. Well, you have great teams. Yeah. You create great teams so that you avoid that. You know, now if I wanted to do everything myself and I wanted to micromanage, then yes, you're going to burn out. But there's a reason why, you know, people way bigger than me who have way more going on are successful at it, you know? And I think it's just proper, like, team management, time management. And that's literally how I've just been getting through life. It's just saying, okay, and also understanding, like, yo, if I want to do this film, for instance, that's going to have to wait 6 months from now or a year from now, and understanding that I'll be able to loop back around. But I think placing the importance of it and having that mind, that kind of category in my brain on which one is most important to me. And those are always the ones that I find first. And then everything else, I'll find some way to connect back to it at the proper timing. As a self-described ADHD, but well-organized, sometimes micromanager. Yes. Do you have like a 5-year plan? I mean, how far out are you thinking at this point? Right now, I am at around probably 5 years. Okay, what does you 5 years from now look like? 5 years from now, I have my publisher hat on. You know, my writers and my producers are killing it. I'm still having records. It's not going to be just like full-time kayaker. Or... Definitely not. Yeah. But I always told myself that I would be able to retire by the time I was 30. I won't. but I would be able to, and that's also me knowing that, okay, I could quit right now and be done and retire for the rest of my life, but I'm doing this because it's fun.
But you see yourself maybe transitioning more into the business side of things?
I think more or less. I think continuously building out what I'm doing now, which is setting the foundation. I think having those companies grow over the years, and watching them grow, between Park Studios, which puts on the burnout camps, and we give away grants to different creatives that, say, for instance, you can't afford to get that Adobe Photoshop, or you can't afford to get that home studio. We're giving away grants. Like, I just want to give back. You know what I'm saying? I'm 26 years old. Been working since I was 9. Like, I've written for most of the people that I want to write for. At this point, it's me just continuing that and finding new inspiration in music outside of my own music. And really learning and soaking up the culture, like, as an artist, and really exploring that and growing. Like, that's all that I'm looking forward to doing. Like, right now, I have like 5 different companies, so it's like, okay, that is my 5-year plan. The thing that I'm starting right now is literally watching that grow. Do
you get a sense that the writing and performing part will eventually kind of, not go away, but maybe fade into the background a little bit?
No, I don't think that songwriting or performing, whatever, I couldn't give it up if I wanted to. Because at the end of the day, as much as I'm a businesswoman, I'm a creative. Yeah. And that's something that naturally pours out of me the same way that coming up with creative deals pours out of me. But I don't think that I would ever give up performing until I was like, too old to be on that stage. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't
think there is a too old now. I talk to a lot of people in their 70s and 80s on this show who are still out there doing it. I mean, there was like there used to be a stigma, but it's kind of gone now.
If I'm still having fun, I always say this: I'll do anything for as long as I'm having fun doing it. Like, I'll continuously do that. Right now, I could see myself definitely going hard and on the business side in my 30s and 40s, but also still being on the stage. But at that point, I will have had enough success within those companies to continue to build. I'm trying to be the Madonna of my Maverick. I'm trying to be the Jay-Z of my Rock Nation. So it's one of those things, and you don't have a young black woman that has built a Rock Nation or a Maverick or and like, you've had a lot of very successful artists that have had great artist careers, but I'm trying to build something bigger than that, something that to say, when I'm long gone and dead, there are these artists that my companies have been able to be a part of culture and help those other artists become the biggest thing. And that's how you influence culture. That's what I want to do.
You feel like, as a black woman, that you have something to prove because it hadn't been done before?
I think that I wouldn't. That's not probably the reason why I want to do it. But I think that adds fuel to the fire. Yeah, definitely adds fuel to the fire, because I'm like, wait, if it's 2020 and I see that it hasn't been done, and I'm doing this along with, I see a lot of other people starting to really take their business seriously. Imagine where songwriters and producers and artists could be 10 years from now, seeing the foundation that I'm laying and taking it to the whole nother level. So if we're starting this now, it kind of makes me excited for what business will be when I am 40, 50, 60, 70 years old.
We were talking before we turned the mics on about kind of what a blur it's been, and how you went straight from, I think, the plane into the studio. I mean, there must be nights where it's not fun, right? There's nights when it feels like a job. There's nights when you're like sick or tired and don't necessarily want to be doing it.
Yeah, there's definitely nights where I'm tired as shit. But I think that that's one of the things where on those nights where I'm so tired and I just want to go to sleep, and I check in with myself, which is one thing that, like, we teach ourselves at the burnout camp, like mindfulness, gratitude, because that's one of the things. It's easy to take it for granted when you have it. And so when you're in that area in your life and you feel like, I don't need this shit, I don't need another platinum record, I don't need another Grammy nomination, I don't need another, and then you say, okay, first of all, let's take a second to be thankful for that. Secondly, are we still happy doing this? Thirdly, are we properly managing our time and our energy and all of those things? Because it is like this kind of kind of like science experience, and you're always saying, okay, I need to do a little bit more of this now
Yeah.
and a little less of this. And then next week you might need a little bit more of time and a little bit less this. Sometimes you might need a little bit more love in that week. And sometimes it's like you're constantly creating these formulas for whatever you need to in life, but it's impossible to do that if you're not checking in with yourself. So I think any moment where I feel like I'm getting like, I'm tired, let's get to the source of that. And what are you doing? What in this equation is not feeding your soul? You know, and you take it out, and it could come back up 6 months later, you know, in better timing or whatever. But I think always checking in with yourself, you know.
Do you ever see that possibly manifesting itself as, you know, maybe getting to a point where you're taking the acting part more seriously, where that comes back to the forefront?
Funny enough, I have been interested in that. I think right now I'm really focused on just the artistry and really.
I looked at your IMDb page and it's funny because it's all these like you're kind of like popping up places,
I'm like,
but you're just like it's like choir singer.
Yes,
or,
exactly.
You know, it's
just
like voicing
randomly.
like Justice League.
Exactly.
It's the weirdest shit.
Exactly. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, and
you're like you're working that muscle out.
Exactly. I'm like, okay, I don't want to completely give it up because it also adds to my. I think my history with songwriting, my history with acting also added to songwriting. For instance, when you're an actress and you're stepping into a role and you read the character breakdown, what they've been through, how old they are, the type of personality that they have, that's exactly what you're doing when you're interpreting an artist. You know? And so because I see the value that's added, and also the value that knowing how to show up on time to a set and knowing how not to waste people's time, people aren't used to dealing with the type of creative I am, and I think that it's because I come from those types of worlds. You know, I'm not waking up at 2 p.m. I've been working since I was 9 years old on sets. You know? So it's a completely different world. And because I know that those things add to where I'm going, I'm like, okay, so this is just another tool that will add to, and I guess at the right timing, so I don't make sure that I don't overwhelm myself. At the right timing, I can come back to that tool and I can grow, and I can, you know, maybe the way that I do music will add to what I'm doing in acting down the road. You
were, 12, 13 in Hairspray?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, you said Grammy nominations and, you know, working with all these stars and being on, you know, Disney Channel shows. Do you still have moments of surreality at this point? Do things still feel crazy, stuff that's happening to you?
Sometimes I cannot believe my life.
Yeah. To
the point where, like it'll make me a little bit emotional right now, but, like, sometimes I'm like, what? I don't think that I could have, explained to little me that not only will you songwrite, you're going to get there, but you're going to go far beyond what you thought you were going to do.
What was the last time you remember really kind of having that feeling where you're like, holy shit, what is happening in my life right now?
Today. Because today I had my first sold-out show for a headlining tour, my very first headlining tour. And today I was just like, you know, and I'm sitting down with my photographer who I met literally walking down the street. And he was like picking up some trash.
You're like you there picking up the trash. I want you to shoot me.
Well, he literally was like, yo, I love your outfit. Like, I do photography. This is my job on the side. I was like, what kind of pictures you take? Yeah. I'm not about to go nowhere with you. And then he showed me these beautiful shots, and he took out his camera. He's just like, I just do this job to make money on the side or whatever. He's literally here with me today, and that was 5 or 6 years ago. So crazy because we were talking, and same thing with a lot of other people who have been on my team forever. And he remembers, you know, when I wasn't on the stage at all. And then he remembers when it was like 2 people that gave a shit. And then, you know, now he's really being able to see people are singing along to every single word. And, you know, I've been blessed enough to be able to open up for all these incredible artists. So I think also a massive part of me keeping that perspective is keeping the people around me that started with me way back then, because they're also better at sometimes at reminding you how far you've come, because sometimes I forget.
They're good at keeping you humble, but also the people who believed in you when you weren't on top.
Exactly.
Those are the people you want around you.
Exactly. And it's really nice to have and to understand that, okay, I'm doing something right as a leader for them to still want to be around, and they're doing something right as a creative or whatever, you know, and as a teammate to that we can experience this journey together. Like the same thing I experienced with, Thank You Next, and like that entire album was like, wow, I'm at the Grammys with my friends right now, and that's cool because this is not the first time I'm at the Grammys, but this is the first time that I'm there with my friends for something that I did with my friends, and that's not something that a lot of people can say.